All right, looks like we are live. Welcome, everybody, to Standing for Truth. My name is Donny, and I am your host and moderator for tonight's heroic debate between Dr. Kent Hovind and Wade the Wizard. Guys, this is Endgame. This is round 3, chapter 3. Call it whatever you want. Again, Kent and Wade debating the topic of evolution. The Evolution Debate Challenge series continues. And Wade, why don't we start with you in terms of introductions, breaking the ice? Obviously, you're no stranger to this platform at this point, since this is round 3 between you and Kent, the much anticipated round 3, I should say. So for anybody new, though, a little bit about you, a little bit about your channel. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Wade the Wizard, and my channel is The Wizard Show. I'm hoping to up my subscription count from 304 to 305. That'd be pretty great. So small little channel. It's just a creative outlet for me where I make a couple videos each year. I did make a review of our first debate, me and Kent Hovind. So go ahead and after the debate, go ahead and head over there and check it out.
Okay, much appreciated there, Wade. Your link to your channel is in the description box. So, maybe we'll get you to that 305 by the end of this epic debate. Kent, my brother, this is your third debate in 3 days. So that has to be a world record for sure. 3 formal debates in 3 days. How many people can say they've done that? But you look good. So how you doing? What's going on? How's Dal?
Well, God's been good. Some of God's kids drive me nuts, but God is good. It's Dinosaur Adventureland. We've had a bunch of people come through today for tours. How many took the tour today? A whole bunch of them here tonight. And so I love doing that on the side-by-side, giving the tours. And we teach a lot of science lessons that have a spiritual application. We just want to give God the glory for his creation. I think God designed everything. I think it was amazing. And he ought to get the credit and the glory. So that's what we do around here. I've been a Baptist preacher 48 years, taught science in high school 15 years, science and math. And we defend the Bible as being absolutely true and evolution as being stupid. I am a little nervous tonight, though, because I got to fight Wade and the possum hat. This is 2-on-1. It's going to be tough, but I think I can make it. Go ahead.
It's a 2-on-1, brother, but you've done a 3-on-1 in the past.
Oh, yeah.
If I find the 2-on-1 becomes unfair, I'll jump in. We'll make it a 2-on-2, so no worries. Okay, all jokes aside, let's get right into it. For the audience sake, we are going to be having an audience question and answer. That's where we get you guys involved, the best audience on YouTube. You guys always have tons of fantastic questions, always relating to the topic of the debate. Tonight, evolution is on trial. So tag me with your questions. I'll do my best to save them for an audience Q&A at the hour mark. Okay, this is going to be more free-flowing and organic, where Wade is going to start us off with, let's say, up to 5 minutes, setting the foundation and, choosing the direction that we should take in terms of the debate. So, Wade, let's hand it over to you. And whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. So let me share my screen. You see my screen there? All right, cool. I guess just as a bit of formality or whatever. So with any and every other debate, they agree on, whether that debate is on gun rights or abortion, they define the terms. Really want to emphasize that we're going to be using the definition of evolution that is accepted by all scientists, and that is the change in heritable characteristics of biological populations over successive generations. In short, it's reproduction, variation, and selection. Okay. Endgame. Here we go. So if we're in the forest and we find some footprints, we make an observation. This is evidence. This is a piece of evidence, and we can conclude that either it was some mysterious creature, it was Sasquatch, or we can conclude that maybe it was just somebody wearing some fake feet and it's all a hoax. So yeah, the footprints are a piece of evidence. We're gonna find, or I suppose I should say, until we find more evidence to confidently conclude one or the other. First aspect, or first footprint that I want to look at is DNA. This is very well understood. It's very well tested. We can see that we can create these great family trees with comparing the similar DNA. And what we observe in nature, we see that, wolves, coyotes have similar DNA. You have alligators, crocodiles, 93% similar. Emus, cassowaries, chimpanzees, and humans, they all have similar DNA. Now, if we compare, so I want to look at the two different conclusions that we could form. So creation would suggest common DNA means a common designer, and that seems fine and all. And evolution would suggest that common DNA means common ancestry, but creation isn't consistent in that. So they support the idea that like a wolf and a coyote are similar or have a common ancestor because of their similar DNA. But for some reason, there's an exception when it comes down to our closest ape relative. And so, I mean, just looking at creation versus evolution when we observe DNA, I think evolution has a better, jump over here. Stop sharing. So yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on each of these points. We'll just kind of go back and forth. So I'll give the time over to Kent, and you can talk about DNA.
Okay, Wade, thank you so much, for that first point, and those visuals, always helpful. Kent, we'll give it over to you, and I guess we'll go from here and focus on DNA for now. That was just a few minutes, so Kent, feel free to take the same amount of time, and we're just going to have a free-flowing discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, yes, his definition, evolution is change in the heritable characteristics. I didn't write fast enough to get it all down. They are backpedaling desperately. Wade, you are backpedaling. The word evolution involves a lot more than that, okay? The guys have realized you cannot defend the first several meanings of the word evolution, which I cheerfully give in my seminar all the time. Science is what we know, knowledge accumulated by experimentation, observation, testing. That's what the word science means. Evolution is not science. We do observe characteristics that are passed on that are similar, and I agree. My children have some similarities to me, and I have some to my dad and my grandparents. I agree. But we're still human. So I define the word evolution with 6 different meanings, and I know you guys hate this because it exposes the stupidity of evolution. But first, you'd have to have cosmic evolution, the Big Bang. Something has to get there. Then you have to have chemicals evolve. Chemical evolution is where the hydrogen gas from the Big Bang turned into everything else. Chemical evolution. It's in all, it has to be key. You guys have to have this step. You have to take the hydrogen and helium and lithium and turn them into platinum, silver, gold, and everything else. It just doesn't happen. You can't fuse past iron. Then you'd have to have stars and planets evolve. We're standing on a planet called Earth, about 8,000 miles in diameter. And where did it come from? All that matter fit in a dot smaller than a period. They don't like to talk about stellar and planetary evolution, because there is no evidence of a star ever forming. None. They believe it. They believe it very strongly. Stellar evolution. Nobody knows how a star evolved. We covered all this last night. Then they have to have, let's see, right here. There's a lot of stars out there, a whole lot of stars, okay? 76 trillion is the current estimate, maybe 3 times more than that. Those are the ones we can see. They don't know about the ones we don't know about. So everybody on Earth could own 11 trillion stars to their self. You guys really think it all fit in a dot? Then there'd have to be organic evolution. This is a major step. Life has to get started from non-living material. The definition you gave, Wade, started with living things already able to reproduce. If they're already alive and they're already able to reproduce, that's 2 giant steps that you just want to gloss over. No. How did that happen? Organic evolution, the origin of life. How did life get started? New theory of organic evolution. Organic evolution. This is essential that life gets started from non-living material. It is not scientific to say that it happened without a creator. You can believe it if you want, but it's not science. Nobody knows how lifeless chemicals turned into a living cell. You can believe that if you want, but it's not science. Primordial soup, we'll bring it up later if you want to go down that rabbit trail. Macroevolution is where you change from one kind of animal into another. Now, the definition you gave, change in the heritable characteristics of creatures or something to that effect. Well, then it's already alive and it's already able to reproduce. Where is the evidence of any animal ever changing into something else? Nobody's ever seen this at all, ever. Macroevolution doesn't happen, okay? Macroevolution, we've got plenty of stuff on that, for process of evolution. We do see a variety of dogs, 339 recognized breeds of dogs in the world. I agree. They probably had a common ancestor called a dog. That's as far as it goes. Now, if you want to say your definition of evolution is change in the characteristics, well, I think the Great Dane and the Chihuahua have a common ancestor, but are different. So if that's all you mean by evolution, well, then the debate's over. I agree with you. That happens. Variations happen. Lots of different kinds of dogs in the world, a bunch of them. Might have had a common ancestor called a dog. It doesn't prove the dog is related to the alligator and the pine tree. You may get a big dog or a little dog, but you're always going to get a dog without exception. And a 4-year-old can tell you, I do this all the time. I'll get a 4-year-old and say, okay, kid, here we got a dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana. Which one is not like the others? I've only ever had one kid get it wrong. He said the boy. Okay, I'm sorry. The banana. They all say the banana. Bible says they bring forth after their kind. That's all we've ever seen. Darwin wrote a book and changed it to the origin of species. Well, a dog and a wolf are different species, but they can still mate and bring forth. They're still the same kind. Lastly, microevolution, and it seems, Wade, that this is what you wanted to focus the debate on. Okay, I think variations happen. I think there are changes in the heritable characteristics, but I think they are limited. Just like we've noticed, they can get faster and faster horses, but they're going to reach a limit at some point. Secretariat, whatever ran the Kentucky Derby, whatever it was, and whatever time it was, that's getting close to the limit. They put a lot of money into horse racing. Why don't they breed wings on the horse and fly around the track in 3 seconds? The fact is, yes, changes are in the gene. The gene code is able to make a variety of changes within limits, and you guys don't recognize the limits. You think it just goes forever. No, microevolution is a lousy term, but the way they use it, it just means there are variations within the same kind of animal. 1,000 different kinds of apples now. Probably had a common ancestor called an apple. So if that's what the debate's on tonight, well, then it's over with. I already won. I agree. Variations happen, but they're limited. So Wade, do you think the variations are unlimited? Do you think an apple is related to an alligator? Do you think an apple and an alligator have a common ancestor? Let's just take that one. Apple and alligator. Do they have a common ancestor? Your turn.
Okay. Wow. I figured it was going to be bad, but I didn't expect it was going to be that bad. So if we were imagine we were having a debate on creation, okay? And you, Kent, you give your definition of creation. And then I say, oh, no. Actually, the correct definition of creation is these 6 points, that are completely unrelated to your definition. We're not going to have a very productive debate, all right? So like planetary evolution, you're like, it's reproduction, variation, and selection. So we don't have planets that come together, make a baby that's slightly different, and some kind of natural selection doesn't happen. So I'm going to share my screen.
And yes, of course. And remember, gentlemen, this is a free-flowing discussion too. So if you guys ever feel like you need to, address a certain point, just feel free to do so. I'll try and be as non-intrusive as possible.
I did want to point out again that there is a special pleading fallacy with creation when it comes to DNA, saying that we couldn't possibly be related to chimpanzees. So I want to focus on, or my next footprint, my next observation is speciation. So currently there's an estimate. I mean, it's extremely difficult to count, but they have a lot of good methodology as far as doing estimates. There's estimated over 8 million species. So, I mean, even if we err on the side of caution, say, because, there's there's a million animals that are cataloged, just animals, not plants, fungi, protozoa, things like that. There's a lot of different species. If we look at the creation explanation, okay, a few thousand years ago, Answers in Genesis says there was 1,400 species. So, 1,400 species over 4,000 years just exploded with speciation. New species every day, but then all of a sudden it just stopped. Like, presently there's not this rapid speciation happening. So, like, I mean, how? Why? That's not a very good explanation. Of course, when we look at evolution, when we have millions of years and millions of different branches, and even as detailed, like I think I have, you can zoom in on this, and I think I figured that this tree of life is off by a factor of 20,000 or so. So we have a lot more branches, and we can trace using other lines of evidence of how they're related, and it's really no problem at all to explain speciation when we look at it from an evolution perspective. So I'll stop my share and turn the time over to you.
Okay, Wade, appreciate that response there. And okay, we've got speciation on the table, and Kent, of course, feel free to address anything you would like to in that couple-minute response.
There's a website called baraminology.com, from the Hebrew word baramin, B-A-R-I-M, baramin, anyway, I-N, that the word kind, baramin, in the Hebrew word language, kind. They say there are probably about 8,000 basic kinds of animals. Species is not the argument. Carolus Linnaeus made up a classification system back in the 1700s with kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I think it's probably more along the family line or genus line. This chart, though, shows humans and birds having a common ancestor. I think we would agree that humans can produce a variety of humans. Tall ones, short ones, dark ones, light ones, blonde hair, red hair, brown hair. But they're still human, without exception. There's a variety of birds. This textbook says reptiles and birds have a common ancestor. I think that's real stupid, but if they want to believe that, that's fine. Do you think humans have a common ancestor with a ladybug? This chart shows that they do. I think this is pure propaganda. Ladybug, pine tree, and human have a common ancestor with a worm, which is way down here. And you guys want to keep adding time. Well, billions of years ago. There's a lot of reasons why you can't have billions of years. That's another argument. But you want to talk about speciation? I agree. Speciation happens. Creation of new kinds does not happen. It's never been observed for a dog to produce a non-dog or a pine tree to produce a non-pine tree. It has never been observed. Science is what we can observe, study, test, demonstrate. If you think, like this chart shows, a single-celled creature turned into a worm and a reptile and a bird and a human, well, let's do it again in the laboratory. A lot of single-celled creatures have a very short generation time. Some get as many as 8 generations in one day. They get born, grow up, get married, have kids in 3 hours. So, yes, there are some very short generation time single-celled creatures. And all we've ever seen is they still produce the same kind. But they draw these charts with a human and an orangutan and a lemur having a common ancestor, and it's just propaganda. The fact that some idiot decided to classify humans as primates, well, I'm sorry, he needs to go back to school. Humans are different than primates. They talk about transitional fossils. Where's the evidence that any animal changed to something else? They say, well, fossils. Well, no fossil could count as being transitional. You couldn't prove it had any children. You certainly couldn't prove it had kids that were different than itself. So you can't go by fossils. No animal today can produce kids other than their same kind. Why would we believe a bone in the dirt could do that? This is just a pure religious belief. So Transitional fossils, my take is there is absolutely none of them. And speciation happens, but they're limited. There are hundreds of varieties of bats. I think 1,100 now varieties of bats. Might have had a common ancestor called a bat. Do you think that change we see within the bat kind is enough evidence to believe bats are related to strawberries? That's what you believe, Wade. You believe you believe you're related to a strawberry if you go back far enough. I think that is absolute insanity, and you need to stop and rethink that. But the textbooks show everything, a tree of life, everything goes back. So you got the humans, the sharks, the strawberries, the bananas all have a common ancestor. This one has animals, plants, and fungi all having a common ancestor. So according to this chart, Wade, they're claiming you humans are related to strawberries. Do you believe if we go back billions of generations, you and a strawberry have a common ancestor? Simple question.
I'm so glad you asked that question. So what I want to point out here to people who are watching is, so first of all, everyone who's a proponent of evolution believes that all life has a common ancestor. But the reason that Kent brings up these, the reason he doesn't ask something like, does a wolf and a coyote have a common ancestor, is because that seems more understandable. But instead he picks up things like a plant and an animal which didn't have a common ancestor for billions of years. Now I'm gonna share my screen. But yeah, I mean, the reason Kent brings up that tired old question is because it's misleading. It's meant to distract. Okay, so my question, Kent, what is a better representation of Noah's Ark? This photo or this photo? Okay, I'll answer for you. This photo. This is a much better representation, even though, yeah. So what do you think is a better representation of the tree of life? This photo or something like this that has, 800 different branches? It's, I can go to it here, go to the link, and I can zoom in. Tree of Life Explorer. It's a great tool. You can zoom in and you can see how they're related. But anyway, I'm gonna hold on. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time. I want to just kind of visit each of these little footprints so that hopefully we can find out the truth. See if we can find Sasquatch. So the next point I want to discuss. There's a little bit of lag.
Well, Wade, did you want Kent to address your questions there on the two trees?
Yeah, we're getting 4 or 5 topics on the table now, one at a time.
Well, I mean, I can tell you. So the reason why Kent uses a very simplified, cartoonish tree of life is to make it, to appeal to incredulity, to make it seem like it's impossible and it's stupid and it's silly. But even that tree of life that I showed is, again, off by a factor of 20,000. There's millions and millions of branches. So that's why.
Yeah, let me try to understand now. So if you have a tree of life that only has 100 branches, and you have another tree of life that has 8,000 lines they've drawn on paper, because it has more lines on paper, therefore it's more accurate? I don't think any of those lines they drew on that paper have any science to back them up. We never see a cow produce a non-cow or a dog produce a non-dog. You can draw a line on paper and you can draw 8,000 lines on paper, 10 billion lines on paper. It's nothing but drawing lines on paper. It's not science. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. So far, nobody's ever seen a cow produce a non-cow or a dog produce a non-dog. It just isn't.
And that doesn't violate the definition of evolution.
Your definition you gave, maybe you can put it back up on screen, change in the heritable characteristics. Well, if it's got a characteristic.
Population, yeah.
Okay, well, if it has any characteristic, like a nose on the front, tail on the back, 4 feet, that is indication somebody designed it that way in my book. But you say, well, these have similar characteristics, therefore they have a common ancestor. That's not science. That's a religious belief.
Right.
And you might state it forcefully, but it's still nothing but a religious belief. Nobody's ever seen a dog produce a non-dog. Where's the best example you know of for any animal that we can prove turned from one to another? You believe an amoeba turned to a human over millions of generations. Where's the evidence for this? Nobody's ever seen a human produce a non-human baby. Nobody's ever seen an amoeba produce a non-amoeba. So where's the science behind what you're saying? You're drawing a bunch of lines on paper and claiming that's a relation. That doesn't mean anything.
So
I can draw a line
my
on
main
paper
point,
between an elephant and a coffee cup. So that was
my main point with the tree of life comparison of a very simple and a more detailed explanation, you know, like, so with Noah's Ark, if I have a silly cartoon with like 3 animals, it's going to make the story seem more incredulous. And so that's why you show these more simplified things. But let's jump back into some more evidence. We'll go on to the next topic. There's plenty.
Well, let me finish on Noah's Ark then. I think the idea of having 8,000 basic kinds of animals on Noah's Ark that have now diversified into 1 million different species is reasonable. You believe all the different million species we see on the planet came from a rock, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's abiogenesis, and that's not evolution. So we're going to just go ahead and move on to the next topic.
I don't see your screen shared, Wade. If you wanted to share it, feel free to do so.
Let's see. It's just a little bit of lag in my computer.
No worries. No worries.
You see it?
Yes, it says survival of the fittest is what I see. Or suffering.
I want to talk about something that we observe, scientifically observe in nature, and that is a lot of suffering. It is a cruel and terrible world out there. Whether you're getting eaten alive, or you're starving to death, or getting burned alive, or maybe you just reproduced with your mate and then they bit your head off. So if we look at creation, apparently, so the explanation is that the first human male and female, which already we have problems because, anyway, that's besides the point. So they stole a cookie out of the cookie jar and disobeyed God, and because of that, God punished every generation from there on afterwards, and all the animals. And like, God designed these animals to suffer. A loving God, mind you. If we look at evolution, it's a simple and wonderful explanation, and we see that it's the survival of the fittest. This guy who's a little bit faster, he's gonna go on to reproduce and carry on these heritable traits to other populations. So let's turn the time back over to you, and you can talk about that issue.
Well, we're not here tonight, I don't believe, to defend the Bible. I'm not asking that to be taught at taxpayer expense. The purpose is, the title of the debate is, where's the evidence for evolution? So I agree, survival of the fittest seems to work. But in your mind, survival of the fittest somehow implies arrival of the fittest. And that's where it goes just flat stupid, okay? There are faster horses. I'll show you some examples here. Alt-DV 14.0. They've been trying for years to get faster horses, and they now have spent a fortune at the Kentucky Derby to get the winning speed from 127 down to 123. But even in the old days, they had some awful good times turned in. So do you think there's a limit to how fast a horse can go? I think there's a limit. Now, whether they reach the limit or not, I don't know. They're probably getting close. But my point is, sure, survival of the fittest happens, but it's not going to create anything new, and doesn't explain the arrival of the fittest. How did it get to be a horse in the first place? So we have varieties of just about every kind of animal, and some would not survive in nature, depending upon what part of nature they're in. If you turned all the dogs in the world loose in Alaska, the little bitty ones wouldn't survive. The ones with short fur wouldn't survive. So nature can select certain things to survive in a given environment, but it doesn't create anything. You want to give it a creative power. This survival of the fittest, you want to make it create things, and it just doesn't, Wade. I'm sorry that you got suckered into believing that, but it's not true. There are different kinds of lions and cats. The Bible says they bring forth after their kind. I think now they've figured there are 500 varieties of chickens that man has developed, some for more eggs, some for more meat, some for to stand hotter climate, whatever, but they're still chicken. No, they've never got out of the chicken category. What happened? The Bible says they bring forth after their kind. That's all we've ever seen. 8 different species of owls. Wow, might have had a common ancestor called an owl. But you believe that this is enough evidence to convince you that an owl and an oak tree have a common ancestor. Variations happen, no question, but they're limited. This is what you guys refuse to admit or understand. Yes, I agree. Variations happen, but they...
And that's literally the definition of evolution.
That what now?
What you're explaining, like, so varieties of, what is that? You have carrots or potatoes or whatever. So evolution is a change in the heritable traits of biological populations over successive generations. That's evolution.
Well, hold it. I agree. The traits can change over successive generations, but do you believe there's any limits to those changes? You showed the family tree, same one I showed.
Well, yeah, okay. So
humans. What?
Like an interesting point, you're talking about horses with wings or whatever thing like that. If we look at dogs, which were unnaturally selected, selectively bred, it has taken us, a good 1,000 years to go from a wolf to a slightly smaller wolf. We have like the Chihuahua pug, different, like just barely different. So I don't know what you would be satisfied with, like for a horse to develop wings, we're talking about hundreds of millions of years. So I don't know. We see we observe a short window of time that we've been around, and using other evidence, we can extrapolate this information and come to a very reasonable conclusion, which is by far greater explanation than design. Apparently this loving God designed, like, why didn't he just make all animals vegetarian?
Well, so you said about the horse getting wings, you have to take millions of years. You and SpongeBob got to go in business together. You have a wild imagination. You think we could just imagine if we had millions of years? First of all, we don't have millions of years, and that takes it outside the realm of science. All we've observed is dogs produce dogs. What's the best example you know of for evolution of anything other than producing after its kind? Because you believe dogs and strawberries have a common ancestor if you go back far enough. You believe these family trees show something.
Hey, Don, you're keeping track of time, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I just don't want
we're good.
Get too sidetracked.
Yeah, we got lots of time. No worries.
Okay.
Wade, this family tree shows humans and frogs and sunflowers have a common ancestor. Somebody drew lines on paper connecting them. Does this represent science?
Yes.
Okay. Where's the
good
evidence?
question? A good question I'll throw in for you both, since we're talking a lot about phylogenetic systematics and these family trees. Wade, when we see these trees with all the different forms of life connected, what's the empirical data that suggests we can connect them in the first place? What dictates those lines?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like one thing that so like in forensic science, if we come to a crime scene, we're not just going to look at that one fingerprint and then discard the murder weapon and the blood splatter and the footprints and all this other evidence. And so when we're talking about this tree of life and like how do we support this idea, it is decades and decades of well substantiated, like very well tested evidence. We have taxonomy and DNA and homology and paleontology, and there's a lot that supports. Now, is my video glitching on your end? Oh,
yeah. Occasionally it does that. I'm not too sure what it does. So I guess based on your answer, Wade, are you saying one of the lines of evidence that connect the various creatures on these trees? Let's even just take the great ape family, right? Humans, orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos. It's DNA similarities, would you say?
No, it's all of the evidence collectively. It's the whole picture, the grant, and that's what I meant to say is, like, if we look at just one piece of evidence, if we look at just one footprint, it doesn't make sense. It's not going to connect. These lines aren't going to connect. But when we consider all of these different observations, and I mean, we kind of got sidetracked here, but the point I'm trying to make is we go through all these different footprints, and then we can make the whole picture, and it comes together, right? So we're looking at DNA, and we're looking at homologous, analogous features, and biogeography and paleontology.
Okay, I'll stop you there, and we'll get Kent's thoughts on that.
To finish this last thought, I mean, like, if we dwell too much on one piece of evidence, then we're going to miss the whole picture.
Okay, let's do this. Let's allow Dr. Hovind to respond to that response from you, Wade, and then we'll move to another piece of the picture, as you put it. Go ahead, Kent.
Each single piece that he considers evidence is baloney. You get baloney plus baloney plus baloney plus baloney. Now you got a lot of baloney, but that doesn't produce anything. None of them are evidence that any animal has ever changed. They drew lines on paper here connecting humans and frogs. They drew a line on paper. Where's the evidence that humans and frogs have a common ancestor? You want to talk about homology? We both have 2 legs and 2 eyes and 2 ears. That's proof of a common designer. All those so-called evidences that you use to support your religion can also be used to support the idea that the same God designed them all, and it works pretty good. They got sunflowers and, let's see, octopus having a common ancestor with sharks. They put all the animals and all the plants. They drew a line on paper here. This is not science. That's all I'm saying. It's a religion. Everything you use as evidence for your religion could also be used as evidence for creation. If there are homologous structures, yeah, the same guy designed them. I'd say the Honda Civic and the Honda Prelude and the Honda Accord would have thousands of similarities. Doesn't prove they came from a skateboard. It proves the same guys are designing them. So you just rattled off a bunch of lines of science. Let's see, evidence, all the evidence collected, paleontology, DNA, homologous structures. Rattling off a bunch of big words to impress people is not evidence. Where is the evidence that any animal has ever produced offspring that turned out to be different than the parents? Because nobody's ever observed it.
Literally essentially every organism that is born has variation. That's microevolution. I have evolved from my parents. I have mutations. I'm not an exact clone. That's evolution. And then macroevolution would be speciation, which also we have directly observed in dozens of ring species. So can we move on to another line of evidence so that we can hopefully grasp this whole picture?
Yeah, however you guys want to proceed. If there's a slide you want to show, Wade, just let me know. I'll share screen, and we will proceed that way. Make sure we discuss all these arguments. Okay, go ahead.
I really didn't mean to spend too much time on each of these topics, and I just want to point out that the observation of homosexuality occurring naturally is better explained by evolution than creation. But my next point that I would like to discuss is...
Donnie, I get to respond to that one.
Yeah, I just want to jump in. Wait, I don't want any just like quick points and then
then
move on. We want to discuss every
clarify
point.
my
Hold it.
point.
Leave
Okay,
his
go ahead,
slide up.
Ken.
Leave his slide up right there. You're
Hold on,
saying
Ken. If you're going to respond, then let me clarify my point, okay?
well, let me one slice at a time. You're saying homosexual behavior in animals is evidence for evolution. How
Yes,
they're not produced?
yes.
Wade, I don't know if you know this or not, but homosexuals don't produce babies.
Hey, Donnie, can I get my point out?
Yeah.
Well, I'd almost rather just avoid this topic, but I mean, it's totally up to
that's
you.
what I mean. It's going to be just.
Well, you're the one who brought it up,
so.
Wade.
Yeah,
You're the one who kind of snuck it in there.
Well, I mean, because I think it's very. My whole point with this debate is to compare the explanation for creation, which like there's a supernatural deity or entity that is tricking people into and animals into homosexual behavior. But there's a lot of explanations with evolution, whether it's indirect fitness, like how African dogs will care for their cousins, even though they're not reproducing, or you have hornet bees that lose their stinger, they're dying, but they're helping the colony. And, so whether it's indirect fitness or maybe it's just sexual pleasure, it doesn't really matter. Like evolution explains homosexuality perfectly, but to think that like Satan would tempt people to be gay, that's just extremely offensive, bigoted, and nonsensical. So I'll turn the time over to Dr. Dino.
Okay, Ken, go ahead, respond to that, but I don't want to spend an overly significant amount of time on this one. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, they're claiming there are, more than two genders. Is that true with frogs and with butterflies and with every animal, or just humans? There's more than two genders. Homosexuality, they don't produce babies. It takes a male and a female. So if you wish to believe that's evidence for evolution, then you're on a dead-end street because they're going to go extinct. If all of them are homosexual, there'd be no babies produced. Your mama could explain it to you how you get babies. It's not complicated. I've seen some real dumb people figure it out. Okay, so that's not. It's just so.
Yeah, I think you did.
This topic is. We need to have a whole debate on this topic, Donnie, sometime. Yeah, I bet your parents could tell if you were male or female within 5 seconds after you were born. It's not complicated.
Yeah, they can definitely determine the sex, but gender is something different.
Oh, you think gender and sex are different, brother? We need to go on to a new topic. This is insane.
Yeah, you're gonna tempt me to get in on this, Wade. Gender. Okay, let's move to your next point. Go ahead if you want to get your next.
I mean, let's see. You see my screen? Yeah. Okay, so I wonder. Yeah, you know what? We're gonna move on. Gosh, there's a lot. Okay, there we go. So I want to talk about extinction. This is, again, another scientific observation. We see a lot of evidence of creatures and animals that used to exist but don't anymore, right? And, if we look at the explanation for creation, well, God created these animals and then, I guess, changed his mind, or they either he killed them off or however they died off. Like, it just wasn't a very good design, I guess. Kind of like scrap that idea, move on. And like, why, what was even the point of creating the dinosaurs if they were going to go extinct?
Okay.
And then, of course,
one topic at a time.
This is still the same topic, Kent.
You're the one bringing up 10
still
topics.
Extinction.
The title of the debate is "Where's the evidence for evolution?" You haven't shown any yet. But as far as extinction, Wade, that is the exact opposite of what you need. You need new kinds coming on the scene. Where's the example of something new being created? Something going extinct is not going to create something new.
So, like I was saying, evolution has a much better explanation as to why we see all these extinct animals. It's simply the one that did not survive the survival of the fittest. They didn't adapt to their environment quick enough. We also have a lot of evidence for mass extinction events, but apparently God's just not a very good designer and had a few scrap ideas. My main point is, like, if we compare the two explanations, evolution is a better explanation.
Okay. Extinction is not evidence for evolution. Where I agree, some animals appear to have gone extinct for whatever reason. And you want to blame God for that, that's fine. You can do what you want till Judgment Day, and then he's going to have his way.
Well,
but
can you define what evidence is, so we can like have a clear communication on that?
Well, the word science means from the Latin word
No,
seer.
evidence, not
Yeah,
science.
I'm getting there. Seer means to know. We know. How do we know things? We know by observation, experimentation, and testing. I bet you could do 1 billion experiments in a row and crossbreed chickens, and you'd always get a chicken. You're never going to get anything else. You can crossbreed dogs, and you're always going to get, here's the squirrels. I bet you can crossbreed squirrels from now till the cows come home, and you're always going to get a squirrel. So all the evidence shows squirrels produce squirrels. That's evidence. We see that. It happens. We do not see squirrels come from a non-squirrel and squirrels come from a single-celled creature. We don't see that. But you believe it. You believe it very strongly. I'm sorry to hear about that, but you do. That doesn't make it part of science. We see animals go extinct. If all the squirrels went extinct, how would that benefit evolution? Where did the squirrel get started from? Where did the first squirrel come from? What did it come from?
So like a footprint in the forest, that is a piece of evidence. Now we can conclude, was it Sasquatch or was it, a hoax? Now what I'm trying to explain very simply is that if we look at some observation, like some bones in the ground, we can either conclude, well, there was this supernatural deity that poofed everything into existence, but then, you know what? Scraps that idea. That animal goes extinct. Why? Or, we look at evolution and things like death, life and death, and its reproduction, variation, and selection, and they were not selected. And that's a much better conclusion.
Okay.
And to furthermore, like, if we look at that with the whole picture, it just all comes together so nicely.
If you find bones in the dirt, it would be logical. I think all of us would agree. This represents a living creature. This didn't happen by chance. The bones didn't form from the rock or from the mud or from lightning strike on pine trees. I think we would agree finding fossils in the dirt is an indication of something that was once alive. We could probably both agree on that. Now, could you prove those bones had any children? No. Could you prove they had children that were different? No. So the footprints that you're referring to, the evidence, could mean, hey, the fact that we find fossils in the dirt by the billions, maybe there was a mass event that killed a whole bunch of animals at the same time, like a flood, because fossils aren't forming today. Show me where fossils are forming in any significant numbers. They're not. Animals died today by the millions, and none are going to fossilize. So the very fact that we have fossils at all, like this petrified fossil clam, petrified in the closed position. The entire top of Mount Everest is covered.
Donny, I just want to get a gauge on time.
What now?
Are we?
Yeah, we're good on time. We're good on time.
But I mean, like, how much time before we jump into?
We got about 15
closing.
minutes. Okay, go ahead, Kat.
15.
Well, fossil clams in the closed position indicate they were buried alive, because as soon as clams die, they open, and they were buried rapidly. And these are found on top of the tallest mountain in the world, Mount Everest. I think maybe there was a flood. That's a logical explanation for petrified closed clams. What's your explanation? These are found by the billions. There's a seam of them 10 feet thick in Tennessee that goes for miles. Millions and millions of petrified closed clams. How did that happen?
Amazing.
Wait, I'm going to jump in. I want you to answer that question. How do you explain from your position millions and millions of petrified clams? Go ahead.
Petrified clams. So as a mechanical engineer, I don't know much about paleontology, but I imagine, so yeah, I thought it was interesting. My brother, he got his degree in geology, and he was telling me how in southern Utah they went on this field trip, and there's like a lot of shark teeth in southern Utah, and a temporary global flood would not be sufficient to have all these teeth scatter, but it's proposed, or there's a lot of evidence that there was Utah was under a lot of water and there was sharks and but clams, I don't know exactly the process of when they die or how they rapid burial with fossils. I don't know.
Kent, if you wanted to respond.
I got a real simple answer. There was a worldwide
God
flood.
did it.
No, the worldwide flood did it. See, the Bible said the scoffers in the
But
end of time
God
would be
did it. God did the flood.
God said there would
can't.
be scoffers who would be
I've got a
ignorant of the
burning
creation
question.
and the flood. You need to write your name down in my Bible next to 2 Peter chapter 3. You're one of the scoffers, Wade.
I've got a question that I just got to know.
Okay.
Did rainbows exist before the flood?
I don't believe rainbows existed before the flood. I believe they're...
Wow.
Well, Wade, you're a mechanical
wait.
engineer. Listen, you're a mechanical
Really?
engineer. Rainbows are a
So
result
light refraction didn't exist before.
I answered your question. Now let me go on.
Yeah, Wade, I think he just wants to
answered
respond.
your
Go ahead,
question.
Kent.
I do not believe rainbows were capable of being made. Under high pressure, atmospheric conditions, with no clouds, you can't get rainbows. Are rainbows everywhere in the world right now, or only under special conditions? So if the pre-flood world had a canopy of ice over the head and the atmosphere was more compressed, that would explain why things live longer, why they got so much bigger, why they found 27-inch dragonflies, can't fly today, why they find 2-inch long ants, can't breathe today. You got to have higher air pressure. There's overwhelming evidence from giantism of just about everything that things were living longer and growing much bigger at some point in Earth's history. The creation view would say this was in the time before the flood, and no, under those conditions with high pressure and no clouds, you cannot get rainbows.
Okay, so I think we're down to like the one last talking point.
Yeah, if you, it's totally up to you how you want to proceed. We can put up your next point in terms of evidence for evolution and go from there. So if you had something to share on your screen, I'll happily put it up for everybody to see.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That just made my day. So yeah, real briefly, well, I'll wrap it up in my closing remarks. I want to, you know what, we'll have this be my last talking point. Slideshow. Yeah, so surveys among Americans, there's 33% that believe in evolution, 18% that believe in creation and God. And then there's 48% that believe in God and evolution. And it's interesting that the only time that there's a contradiction, a supposed contradiction with God and evolution, is interpreting the Bible literally, which I'm unaware of any like scripture verses that say we're supposed to interpret it literally, or that we still have our whole work to prove the Bible. But so we have 98% of scientists that believe or accept evolution. And let's see, what is this? Yeah, this is kind of that same pie chart. Most people, even among religions, believe in evolution. And this is, so we can see, so since 2009, 2014, more and more people are accepting the science of evolution, while more people are rejecting creation. So if we look at creationist explanation, like why exactly are so many people convinced, right, that evolution is true? Is it either Satan tempting us, or is it an overwhelming preponderance of scientific evidence that people are simply convinced? It's like, what's more likely, that there's sufficient evidence and these scientists are all in agreement, or like it's just so conspiratorial thinking that maybe there's some secret, someone's in on some secret, we're all being tempted and tricked by Satan, he's so tricky. Why is that? Why is the overwhelming majority of people support or understand and accept evolution?
Okay, first of all, I don't think your numbers are correct. Secondly, it wouldn't matter if everybody believed something. There was a time when everybody thought, Columbus would sail off the edge of the world. Not true. The fact that a bunch of people believe something at a given point in history does not make it true. They used to teach, if you're sick, you have bad blood, take your blood out, you get better. That's how George Washington was killed. That's right? How George Washington was killed by. I did not interrupt. Wait, I did not interrupt you. Shut up. It's my turn to talk.
But you're just so wrong.
No.
Well, wait. I want to jump in. I want to jump in here, Wade. But here's the thing. All through history, the majority has been wrong on a variety of things. I bet the majority of people in communist China think communism is wonderful, because if you don't think that, they cut your head off. Now, secondly, you kept using the phrase, people accept evolution. You can only accept something that has been proven to be true. You believe in evolution. You don't accept evolution. You've never seen a dog produce a non-dog. You've never seen these charts that you draw lines on paper. Nobody sees this. There's a variety of pumpkins. There's 111 species of pine trees, 12,000 species of grass, might have a common ancestor, 150 species of roses. I agree there variations happen within the kind, but that doesn't prove rats are related to roses. The fact that we see 150 species of roses and 60 species of rats, okay. They bring forth after their kind. That's all we've ever seen. You've never seen a rat and a rose come from a common ancestor, but you got lines on paper in your books claiming that they did. And all you guys have is a bunch of lines on paper. If a bunch of people believe your religion, that's indication you got a good propaganda system working, and you're able to convince children when they're 3 years old to believe that dumb idea, because you start them off young in our school system. But it's not science. Nobody sees a shark produce a non-shark. Sharks produce a whole lot of teeth. They lose hundreds, maybe thousands during their lifetime. And to find shark's teeth in Utah, hello, there was a flood that covered the whole world. Utah was underwater. It has shark's teeth all over it. Mount Everest has petrified clams on top of it. It was underwater. Not complicated. The evidence shows it was underwater. My theory would be the Bible is correct. The world was flooded. Places lifted up afterwards. Psalm 104, the mountains arose, the valley sank down, the water rushed off. I think all the mountain ranges follow the coastlines. Oh, maybe there's a connection there. You need to watch my whole video series. Wade, we'll get you converted. Go ahead. Wade, go ahead with your rebuttal.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's something that I brought up last time when you kind of talked about, well, there's two kind of ideas, and that is, we used to think that the earth was flat, and we discovered we were wrong. We used to think that bloodletting was a good practice, and now we learned. And we used to think that God poofed all the little animals into existence, and now we learned and we know better. So there's that line of thought, but then also like the majority is right kind of idea, well, like communist China or whatever. And this was something I mentioned in our last debate. If I were to do a survey and say like, well, what's the best ice cream? Well, it depends. It's your opinion, but there's no opinions in science. You look at the data and the evidence, and you come to the conclusion. It's not like if we did a survey on what's 2 + 2. That's just an objective, logical fact. So looking at all of the evidence of evolution, it's not a matter of someone's opinion. And so that's why, whether like people accept the truth or not, that's why I was using that wording. But we're over an hour now, so we're gonna jump into conclusion stuff.
Well, I want to make sure Kent has a chance to respond. Go ahead, Kent, for your response.
He keeps wanting to use the word accept evolution. You have to believe in evolution. Nobody's ever seen anything change to a different kind. These charts they draw, these with the lines on paper, are exactly that, nothing but lines on paper. They draw lines and say, wow, look at this. The human and the frog have a common ancestor. We've got a line connecting them. That's not science, Wade. That's a religious belief. These are simply charts where somebody with a hyperactive ink pen drew a bunch of lines. I think it would be logical to say this ink pen was designed. I think it would be totally illogical to say this happened by chance, even though probably its natural components slightly modified with the plastics and polymers. It had a designer. I don't know who did it, I don't know where, and I don't care. Somebody designed it. I bet they even designed the cap to fit on the pen. Wow, look at that. It's designed. If you can't see design in the human arm or in a single cell, I can't help you. One cell in your body, and you probably have 100 trillion.
It is more complicated than the space station.
Is more complicated than the space shuttle. That's correct.
Yeah. Oh, space shuttle.
Well, then why aren't you seeing it? It's going in one ear and right out the other. There's nothing to stop it in between. You have gone insane, Wayne. The evidence is overwhelming. There's a designer. You don't want to see that. I don't know why, but okay. It's up to you. Go ahead.
Okay. It's up to you if you want a response, Wade, or if you want to jump into closing statements.
Let's go to conclusion.
Okay. We'll give Wade, we'll give you 3 minutes to conclude. Kent, we'll give you 3 minutes. And then as always, we got some fantastic questions from the audience to get into. So, okay, Wade, go ahead. 3 minutes.
Yeah. So my overall concept that I'm trying to present, we have these evidence, these footprints, right? And if we compare the explanation of creation and evolution, the evolution creates a much better argument. And yeah, there was a lot of, there was a lot of other things like why humans have such flexible shoulders. It's because our ape ancestors were so good at climbing trees. Why do we have goosebumps? Like when we're cold or scared? Well, because our ape ancestors would puff up to be big, or when, to insulate themselves or make them look scary. Why do men have nipples? Why did God design us to have nipples? It makes no sense. So yeah, anyway, there's a lot of little observations. And if we ask ourselves, well, what's the creation explanation versus evolution explanation? Evolution, just hands down. Yeah, so that, and so I just want to kind of, to you, Kent, few ideas that I've been having. First of all, like science doesn't debate things. Someone will publish a scientific article, and then other scientists can review it, peer review it, verify it, and if it's good, then it's integrated into the scientific community. But another point I want to emphasize. So, Kent, you've had 200, a lot of debates, and yet not a single evolutionist has been converted or been convinced, right? So, like, what's even the point? You're doing all these debates, and like no one's coming to Jesus. And like, honestly, I think, so like I used to be Mormon, and the Mormon missionaries, even though we agree that the Mormon church is false, right? The Mormon missionaries are pretty successful. Like there's a lot of converts, and it's not because, they don't like knock on your door and they're like, hey, you're wrong, you're stupid, and we're right. Their message is, hi, we have a message of hope and faith and how you can be with your family forever. and it's the happy bit. So I think, Ken, if your overall objective is to bring people onto Christ or whatever, accept Jesus, then you should change your strategy. In fact, when you tell people, hey, you're wrong and here's why, then it creates a backfire effect. It's this personal protective cognitive, I can't remember what they call it, but it's a backfire effect, right? In fact, people double down and they'll say, no, I know I'm right. So I think you should give up debating, and the people who are watching who want to debate Kent, they should leave him be, and you should just share the good message of Jesus, and that's all. That is all for my concluding statement.
Okay, that's 3 minutes. And before I hand it to Kent, I do want to let everybody know in the chat that I have now officially caught up on questions. So much appreciated. And Kent, we're going to give you same amount of time, brother, 3 to 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for your advice, Wade. I'm going to ignore it. I think the debates do change a lot of people's lives. They see this and say, wow. Now, I mean, the actual person I debated, I may not win them over, but I win a lot of other ones over. A guy came today to take the tour and said, I got saved watching your videos on creation. So we are changing lives. As far as why men have nipples, I cover that in great detail on my video number 7, Creation Seminar Part 7, question answer. I'll call that up if you'd like for one of the questions tonight. As far as driving people off, or you are the one who are saying Hovind's wrong and you're right. Re-listen to the debate tonight, Wade. You are convinced that you're right. You're the one not doing their job of coming at it a little more gently, like the Mormons do when they go to doors and knock on the door and offer hope. You just say, oh, evolution's true. We're related to a pineapple. You really believe that stuff. Okay. And let's see. The Bible says very clearly in 6 days, God made everything. This is the 10 Commandments. Exodus 20, God wrote this on a rock with his own finger. He claims he made it all in 6 days. Said it again in Exodus 31. So my video series covers this in great detail, the scientific evidence for a creation about 6 days, in 6 days, about 6,000 years ago, and a flood that destroyed everything about 4,400 years ago. So Jesus said the creation of Adam was the beginning. You don't believe that, Wade. You're calling Jesus a liar, which is your privilege for now. Jesus said the beginning of the creation was when God made male and female. You don't believe that. Jesus said that, though. He said by one man, sin came into the world, and death by sin. God made a perfect world. Man wrecked it. In your worldview, death and suffering is how we get ahead. One animal evolves a little better than the rest. The rest of them have to die to make the good, new, improved species take over. The Bible says Adam was the first man, and Eve's the mother of all living. I believe that. Okay? Jesus said the creation of Adam was the beginning, and nothing died till he sinned, and we all came from Adam and Eve. And if you add up the dates in the Bible, Adam was 130, and his boy was 105, and you can make a chart like this. It really comes very simple. You add up the numbers. The Bible teaches God made everything about 6,000 years ago, or 4,000 BC. I believe that's what the evidence shows. You want all these animals changing slowly over millions and millions of years. They're going to run out of all kinds of resources while they're doing that. There's lots of ways to show the earth cannot be billions of years old, but I know that's an essential part of your religion. So my point is, evolution is nothing but a religious worldview. It is dumb. Didn't happen. There's no evidence for it at all. You ought to get a real common sense religion. Dogs produce dogs every time. Cows produce cows without exception. If you believe a dog and a strawberry got a common ancestor, okay. You believe you're related to a possum, apparently. Okay, believe whatever you want.
Okay, thank you for the concluding statement. And as moderator and host, I think I'm allowed to say, Dr. Hovind, because of your debates, myself and many family members have come to the Lord. So there you go. There's just a few. I'd like to point that out. Okay, well, let's get into some of these questions now and have some fun. So here we go. First question that comes in is from Lisa Foss. And the question is for Wade the Wizard. So Lisa asks, hi, Donnie, question for Wade. If apes are our ancestors, why did we end up with self-awareness and morals when they never had these traits? Go ahead.
Thank you. That's a great question. Yeah, so it's observed in nature among a lot of different social species, not just apes or whatever, but they come up with their own kind of moral code. So like lions will have within their pride, they'll attack the zebra and not each other, or they'll even have a pecking order or something. But yeah, so these kind of like social structures can be very beneficial to survival. Penguins will huddle and keep each other warm, and if as our ape ancestors, if they would share food or care for someone that doesn't have a child or something like that, like it's going to be helpful for survival. And so now we fast forward to today, and how these morals have evolved and developed, and to better strengthen our society. But I think it's weird, and then again, like if we look at any observation and we compare creation with evolution, so God is this like arbiter of all morality, but then he wrote this book that contradicts, is very contradictive to some of these morals, intrinsic morals that we have, like treating women as inferior, which I absolutely detest and despise, and slavery and all sorts of good stuff like that, like incest. And the Bible is pretty messed up. So if you're thinking we got our morals from that book of fairy tales, then that's going to be a different issue.
Okay, thank you very much there, Wade. And Kent, over to you for your response, brother.
Well, excellent question. I apologize for the cough. Where do morals come from at all? Is anything right or wrong? If evolution is true, how do you tell right from wrong on any topic? Would it be wrong to shoot your neighbor and steal his stuff? After all, if you need it, go get it. Does the lion eat the baby zebra? The baby zebra probably don't like it. The mama zebra probably don't like it, but the lion likes it. He thinks it. Where do morals come from? I don't think evolutionists have an answer to that. And I think that the similarities, that humans have a moral structure because we were made in God's image. Now, we've lost a lot of that, and we're a pretty faded image right now, but God's going to fix that back one of these days. So I don't think we came from ancestors of apes. I don't think we have ancestors for apes or baboons or chimpanzees or orangutan. I think our ancestors were Adam and Eve. God made them perfect, designed them to do right, and they blew it. Yeah, where does right and wrong come from at all with an evolutionary scenario?
Okay, appreciate it, Kent. And Wade, you get the final word. Question was for you.
I mean, I would just reiterate what I said, and different morals. I think of like it's either some kind of baboon or macaque or whatever, but they are absolutely vicious, brutal to the females in their group. But that's their code of standard, their social structure. So yeah, we see our fellow apes, our chimpanzees and gorillas. They have empathy, and they can care for each other. And like, I think it's a simple, beautiful explanation as to why we've developed morals.
Okay, moving on. Firstly, before the next question, logical, plausible, probable. He has another after show. Look for link in the chat. So last 3 nights, we've had some fun. First night, we had a double header. Started off with Kent and Taylor. Then the next day, we had Kent and Atheist Jr. with an after show. And tonight, Kent and Wade the Wizard Endgame with another after show. So fun 3 days for the debate addicts. Okay, redefine living. Question for Wade. Again, so he asks, question, how does Wade deal with the accumulation of deleterious mutations each generation, the ones not removed by natural selection? Go ahead.
Redefine reality. I just I feel like if I didn't answer this question, it would irk him even more. So I'm just going to pass on this one.
Well, Wade, I find it funny that you point to DNA as a so-called line of evidence for evolution, but when we actually analyze the DNA and the mutations that accumulate every generation in our DNA, which is a problem for your position, you don't want to answer it. Like, are you sure?
Or are you?
Well, I'm saying you're the affirmative tonight. I think this is a question you should probably attempt to answer.
I'm not a geneticist.
Okay, but you brought up DNA earlier as one of your best lines of evidence for evolution. It's up to you. I'm just trying to, give you the opportunity to defend your position.
Talk about why, even despite having such common DNA, but with chimpanzees, why it's impossible that we could be related. That was something that Kent continued to avoid. And
okay. Kent, over to you for your response.
Well, the question is a legitimate one, and there is an accumulation of genetic problems, deleterious material, and that would limit the amount of time we've been here, because after X number of generations, it's going to build up to the point where you can't survive. So I think that's an indication of degradation, not improvement or evolution. I think that the DNA is incredibly complicated, and there's no way any of it happened by chance. If Wade wishes to believe that, that's fine. But he should admit that that is his religious belief. It's not scientific. DNA is too complicated. So I think natural selection works just great, but it only selects. It doesn't create anything. It selects. That's all. Go ahead.
Okay, appreciate it.
Hang on. I one more thing. Next time we have a debate, instead of a possum hat, Wade, I got the perfect hat for you to wear. Right here.
Oh, hold on.
With your SpongeBob imagination. Just imagine you're related to a possum.
I don't have any tinfoil, but I'm sure you've got some tinfoil. You can make a hat.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Everyone's in on it, right?
Hey, listen, this was the best end game of all end games I've ever hosted. So, Wade, you get the last word. The question was for you.
Accumulation, mutations. I mean, so with each, there's reproduction, variation, or mutation with essentially every generation, and then selection. And I mean, one thing that Kent kind of misses a point on, or he's saying that to say that a mutation is bad or good, it kind of depends on. It's like saying, what's the best color? Well, I mean, it depends. Are you in a green forest or a red desert, right? So if something has a mutation that makes them appear a little more green, well, is it going to be? It depends on their environment.
Okay, thank you, Wade. Let's move on to the next question. All right, let's see here. I'll get to some of these super chats. This one comes in from Van's 182 Workshop. And question for you, Wade. So you're in the hot seat tonight. Appreciate you being a good sport. He asks, please explain how Kent's PowerPoint animal had its head in one layer and the body in the other layer. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ken. I think that was a whale, but I could be wrong on that. Of the geologic column. Did it balance on its nose for millions of years?
So, I mean, that's, it's not really like the rule of, it's just kind of an odd exception. I don't really know the explanation behind that. But I mean, it's not really talking about evolution. It's kind of off topic. So.
Well, would it be an issue if that showed that the geological column, the layers are not different ages, which is where the fossils would fall into that you'd be using for, if that makes sense?
I mean, I can just speculate and say, without doing research, just off the top of my head, maybe there was a local flood, but certainly not a global flood. Yeah, I don't know much about the process of this one, or maybe there's a couple examples of this, but
Okay. All right.
I have to do research on that.
All right. Appreciate the answer. Kent, over to you.
The geologic column does not exist anywhere in the world. It is pure fiction. It's made up. All the layers are the same age. They want us to believe the layers are different ages, but petrified trees are found standing up, connecting all these layers. I can flip this thing over and make 20 layers in a matter of minutes. There's no such thing as a geologic column. This is the whole problem. The whole evolution religion is based on that dumb geologic column. It doesn't exist. They say the top layer is younger. Where's it coming from? Outer space? All the layers are the same age, whether it's 6,000 or 6 billion. Where you want to claim the layers are different ages, it's a legitimate question about the fish fossil with the whale with his nose in rock 1 million years older than the rest of his head. I think we got a problem here, and I don't think you have an answer because you believe the layers are different ages, and there's the problem. All the layers were deposited at one time in one big flood, so the top layer and the bottom layer are about 1 year different in time, not millions of years. There's the whole problem. Your stupid geologic column does not exist anywhere. You need to get a new theory. Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, Wade.
So I currently work for this company called Geotech Coring, and they travel to different sites around the world, and they take these core samples of Earth to determine if it's a viable source for drilling. And this, like, these companies pay Geotech millions of dollars for these geologic columns. And they're right. And they all agree that there are layers, like we're studying these layers that we can see. I've seen them, and it's just curious that, like, every geologist who has ever gotten a degree from an accredited university is pretty confident that Earth is, somewhere between 3 to 5 billion years old. So why is that? It's this big conspiracy, like every single geologist who has ever studied geology is tempted by Satan. They're wrong. Or is it just like the facts?
Okay.
I can answer that.
Sure,
I can answer that. They're wrong. The Bible's right.
Thanks for clearing that up.
No problem. No problem. Tell them to give me a call.
Exist before the flood, and every geologist in the world is just wrong.
Not every geologist. The ones that agree with me are right.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Good old confirmation bias. Wow.
Where does the new sediment come from? I was curious your answer to Kent's question, Wade. Where does the material come from?
How does material deposit?
An answer to Kent's question that he asked earlier.
There's a lot of other. I mean, geology is not really part of evolution, which is so. But I mean, like you've got volcanic activity, you got local flooding, you've got river deposition. There's a lot of different methods that create new layers.
Is that a
really old layers? Oh, I really want to clear up one thing. In our second debate, we were talking about these layers, and I asked, so the global flood of Noah cleared out the Grand Canyon, and then I asked, at what point did the sand turn to rock? And Kent went on about some mud that dried on his car tire. I checked with a geologist, and dirt clods are not rocks. You can have the tide come in on a sandy beach, and when it recedes, it doesn't turn to rock. There's a very specific process. Like the sand dunes are still sand. It's a very long process to turn sand into rock. Much more than 6,000 years.
Okay. Kent, go ahead if you wanted to respond, brother.
Well, there is a phenomena all over the world, a type of rock called sandstone. Google it. There's limestone, sandstone. There's all kinds of different rocks. There's sedimentary rock, igneous rock, metamorphic rock, and they can all form quickly under the right conditions. We take these jars at our cliff down here when we'll give you the tour, Wade, when you come. We shake it up. It always settles out into gravel, sand, clay. Our whole gravel pit here is gravel, sand, clay, 7 layers of it. These gravel layers that they were digging out of this gravel pit go all the way to North Carolina for 500 miles. I don't think that's a local flood. I think that's a worldwide flood. You guys refuse to believe that. 2 Peter 3 describes why. But you don't want to believe in a worldwide flood because that meant that, wow, God has authority to judge his creation, doesn't he? He does, he did, he's going to do it again. Donnie? I've had a long, busy day giving tours. I'm tired, so let's close up here as soon as you can because I'm going to fall asleep. Go ahead.
Okay, no worries. We're going to get the last couple super chats, guys. Let's make a power round, okay? So real quick answers so we can, honor the supporters. So real quick, $5 for the Wizard. I believe that's you, Wade the Wizard. So, and again, Kent, Wade, thanks for making this debate fun. So, okay, dogs, coyotes, and foxes descend from dire wolves. But which of the breeds have a body part or a feature that would be missing in the dire wolf?
So, like, what exactly is missing? I'm confused. Those foxes and from dire wolves. Feature. One thing that Kent hasn't really understood is, it's like all these dog variations, they're all a dog, like it's all still a dog kind, right? But if you think, like, if you have a branch and you have a new sprout that comes off of the branch, it still belongs to that branch. So you don't ever, this is something that people have emphasized a lot in your debates, and it's just not really landing home for you. But these branches belong to the same tree, so you're not ever going to outgrow your. We're going to be tetrapods. We all descended from all mammals, lizards, birds. We all descended from tetrapods. That's why we have 2 eyes, nose, mouth, ears, 4 limbs. But one thing that I think is interesting, so like, and I believe Ken agrees that, say, like, dogs are related to wolves and wolves are related to coyotes and coyotes, the African wolf, and we can go back and maybe, but at what point, like, it stops for some reason, it's too much to say that, like, dogs and bears had a common ancestor. Like, why exactly, how do you explain this special exception, right? So, like, we have the normal that animals that look similar are related,
it's a power round. Remember, Wade, just want to remind you, like, real quick. I'm not sure if you want Kent to answer that. If you do, Kent, real quick answer. Then we got to move on to the next one so we can get through this.
Okay, I think we see a variety of dogs. I think it's always a dog, and I think there are limits to the changes. There are physical limits. There are genetic limits. They've been trying to get faster dogs. I think they're going to get a limit. Maybe they've already reached the limit or getting close. Not too many world records get broken very badly anymore. You barely break it by 100th of a second. We probably reached the limit on some of these things. And it could be that all the dog kinds had a common ancestor called a dog, and the wolf and the coyote are all involved in that. But you want to extrapolate that to say dogs are related to pine trees. In your religion, dogs and pine trees have a common ancestor. I don't think that's science. I don't think it's even common sense.
Okay, and Wade, I'm sure there might be something you want to respond to. I've got 3 super chats I have to get into the debate before we wind it down, and so let's just really power through these so we can call it, as we're now at the 90-minute mark. Okay, so this one comes in from Vittoria, $20 super chat, appreciate it. Question for Wade: why do you collect all the disciplines of science as your evidence for origins of life? Go ahead.
Well, I didn't claim that. Origins of life is something different than evolution, completely different topic. in our first debate, I mentioned how we can look at the trajectory of a comet in space, and with that, we can make all sorts of predictions and extrapolate, interpolate, and we can know exactly when that comet's going to come back again. But what started the comet? I don't know. It doesn't matter. What started life? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But we can look at life, and we can look at speciation and all these different evidences with which essentially all these different disciplines of science help support. And we can extrapolate that and make a sound conclusion that all life came from common ancestry.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Next one. Pure Aussie Gold, $20 super chat. Thanks so much. For you, Wade, there was supposedly been 5 mass extinction events in the last 500 million years, plus the bottleneck from the last ice age 12,000 years ago. Can you explain how the process restarted 6 times over and within that time frame?
No, seriously? So, like, not everything died. Like, it wasn't everything was extinct. But I mean, yeah, it's so weird.
Okay.
I didn't claim that. So yeah, let's just move on.
Okay, appreciate it. And here's the last one. Boomer21, thank you so much. Question for Wade. How do you explain ancient cities on the ocean floor, such as off the coast of Japan, along with underwater pyramids if there was no flood?
Even though that has nothing to do with evolution, I mean, it's kind of what's interesting is like why this is just about Noah's flood, of course. There were a couple of civilizations that have written records that date back, before and after the time of the flood, and apparently they didn't get the memo. They were, yeah. The reason there's some, I mean, the reason why I think, there's tectonic movement, and because if the city was where it was at when, like, where the water levels were, I don't know. Let's just move on.
Okay, well, that was the final one, so we made it all the way through. Appreciate it. The supporter questions. Terrible. That is, Kent. I'm not sure if you wanted, your response to that question, or you gentlemen want to wrap it up at this point.
Well, we can wrap it up. Yeah, there's underwater cities. I think the crust of the earth is still flexing up and down. The earth is all busted up like an eggshell. There are fault lines all over the place. Some are still moving. That's the re-indication of the flood. Somebody said they've been following me since 2015. So has the KGB, the IRS, the FBI, the Gestapo. They're all following me. Oh, well. Let them go.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there, gentlemen. We made it 90-minute mark. Kent, you've been a busy boy. 3 debates, 3 nights. So we're going to give you a little vacation here. Wade and Kent, thanks for doing this. Unless you guys want quick final words, we're going to shut her down. We're going to let you gentlemen get out of here. All right. As always, I stick around. Yeah, go ahead.
One quick thought. Just one thing that like Kent always goes on about is he's like he'll reference the Bible and he'll say like, oh, you're gonna go to hell and the scoffers will be damned or whatever. Like, imagine if I quoted a scripture from the Book of Mormon and I said, beware the coffee drinkers, you shall be damned and tortured. Oh, is that not coffee? It's too late for that. But I mean that, like, I'm not threatened by a passage in a book that I don't consider true. Anyway, it's been interesting. Yeah, this is my last time. I'm not coming back for this, and I think, in fact, I would challenge any other debaters to just leave Kent alone. Stop poking him. Stop teasing him. We just.
Well, Wade, I think you're saying that because Ken Hovind keeps demolishing the evolutionists. So if I was an evolutionist, I probably wouldn't want other evolutionists to debate Kent either. So hey, Kent, let's give you some final words, brother. Wade, I don't want you using my platform to disrespect myself or Kent. So go ahead.
As far as me saying, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, you'll be damned and go to hell. That's what the book says. I'm required to tell what my Lord said. I believe that's true. Now, Wade, if it turns out that you're right, and Pascal's wager here, if you're right, there's no God, there's nothing to worry about. what are you worried about the Bible for? If I'm right and you're wrong, you got a serious problem on your hand. If you're right and I'm wrong, I haven't missed a thing. I've had a wonderful life. I enjoy life. I believe God made the world. I believe he did it in 6 days. I believe animals can vary within kinds, but they're still the same kind. So I like science. I'm having a wonderful, happy life. So if I'm wrong, I haven't lost a thing. If you're wrong, it's going to be a serious lost judgment day. I don't want to see that for you. Okay? You're welcome here at any time, Wade. Come visit Dinosaur Adventureland.
Okay, gentlemen. Wade, Kent, thank you so much for the debate. Thanks for the audience. And the debaters, you are free to leave. All right, there we go. As I like to say, another one in the books. I actually think that might have been debate 200 in terms of that which we've hosted and moderated. So, you know, that was definitely one to remember. You know, I admittedly was not as neutral as I usually am, but this was Wade's third debate with Kent. And judging from what I've seen in comment sections on other channels, I had a feeling Wade was going to come in with some of the tactics that he put forth today. So we'll leave it up to the audience. That was Endgame. That concludes the trilogy between Kent and Wade. So I do challenge anybody in the chat, evolutionists or creationists, to watch the whole trilogy and come to your own conclusion as to whether Wade the Wizard answered or met the evolution debate challenge that we're putting on in terms of this series. So with that being said, I want to point out that, where is it? John Maddox, logical, plausible, probable. He is having an after show. So I'm not sure if the after show is happening right after this or in an hour or so, but I'm sure that should be fun. Moderators, I'm looking at the chat and appreciate all the comments, and thank you so much for all of the comments. Yes, to the mods. Yeah, that's why I cut it short a little bit on Wade's final words there. I felt he was sneaking in you know, a few things that I don't think needed to be snuck in. But anyways, that's okay. It's been fun. So we've had 4 debates in 3 days. So, you know, day 1 of this debate marathon here on Standing for Truth, we had a doubleheader. So we had Kent Hovind and Taylor from the Snake Was Right YouTube channel, and that one was fun. That one was lively. Right after that, we had T-Rock and James W. They debated Noah's Ark and Noah's Flood. That one, I believe, went, if I remember correctly, over 3 hours. That was a very comprehensive debate. Last night, as you know, was the much anticipated debate between Atheist Jr. and Dr. Hovind. We had nearly 400 people the entire time, and that one was worth the wait. So that one was awesome. That one was a ton of fun. I'm really enjoying these, you know, free-flowing discussions that we've been doing in terms of the format. And then today, of course, we had Wade the Wizard and Dr. Dino for their Endgame debate. So that concludes their series. And you know, I will say it was a series worth watching. Okay, so Doki Doki Bible Club, again, I'm just looking at all the Honesty Angel says, sorry SFT, I wasn't as neutral as usual either. Yeah, you know what, even the best of us mods, right, we at times break our neutrality. So that's fine. That's fine. You know, when it's a trilogy and it's the third debate, and the you know, the evolutionist side is supposed to provide the best evidence for evolution, I think as a moderator I need to make sure that's being done. You know, the affirmative is being met. So no worries. The mods, you all did a fantastic job. Doki Doki Bible Club, thank you so much for the super stickers, super chats. Enos, appreciate that. Mods are awesome. Yes. So anyways, we've got a ton more debates for you. This is the end of June. So this is just the beginning of the summer of debates. We had a debate nearly every single day, it seemed, in June. Okay, so we added a ton of debates to the books. And that included creation evolution debates, soteriology debates. That included, debates on, I'm not sure if we had any Trinity debates, but we do have one coming up on the Trinity. So a few of them. July is no different. June was wild, and I think July might even be more wild. So, here we go. We want to set records. Matt Slick, John Barton, they're going to be debating is oneness biblical. This one's going to be a ton of fun because both Matt and John, they are very, very, knowledgeable, well-studied on their respective positions. The oneness position for John and the Trinitarian position for Matt Slick. So that's going to be next week. And we're also going to have, I believe a couple days after that, Kelly Powers and Taylor Stewart, they're going to be debating Unitarianism. And either we're going to do a doubleheader night that night, or we're going to move this a couple days ahead. I've left it up to the debaters to decide. Okay, so this is going to be John Crawford, J.D. Martin. They're going to be debating salvation. And we've also got KJV only. So people have expressed that they're really enjoying this topic. So we've got lots of debates on this topic actually lined up. 3 or 4, if I can remember correctly. The King James only controversy debate. This one's going to be Will Kinney and Turretin Fan. Last week we had CJ Cox and Nick Sayers. Nick Sayers is going to be back here next month as well, debating Eddie from Brute Facts Podcast, I believe his podcast is called. So, and I just booked again CJ Cox and David Preston in terms of a debate on the Bible translations. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do just a real quick power round. Okay, so Mark Reed in Kent next month, James W. in Kent next month, T Jump in Kent next month, and also we've got Brian Emery, I believe is his name. He'll be debating Kent. I've also got some messages over the last few days from more evolutionists who want to take the debate challenge. So I got to catch up on those and book those in. Those I'm going to push into August. I'm pretty much done booking July. It's already packed enough. I'm going to start spreading them out now into August and September. So if you're interested in taking the evolution debate challenge, we've now done 30. So tonight marked debate number 30 in this series. So, that's pretty wild. Olive, good question. That is the very end of July, I believe. July, it should be set on the event schedule. So this is all just a snapshot of the overall content and debates for everybody to have a look at. Okay, so here we go. Open mic after show. Speaking of open mics, tomorrow we're taking off. Going to get some behind the scenes work done since we just had 4 debates in 3 days. Saturday, though, we will be back here for 2 shows. Okay, I'm going to be having a show with Dr. Jerry Bergman, specifically on C.S. Lewis and how he was an anti-Darwinist, an anti-evolutionist. And then that night, I believe at 12 a.m. EST, we are going to have our next soteriology panel discussion. So anybody who wants to get in on the soteriology panel discussion, this week we are going to be doing Romans 8. And specifically, let me see what the exact verse is for everybody. I'll announce it here. We've now done James 2, John 15, and this one's going to be Romans 8:13. So we've been having panels of 10. So whoever wants to get in, feel free to jump into this panel discussion series because it's been very fruitful. And Honesty Angel says, oh no, I've got to get a babysitter Saturday. Yeah, if it's anything like the last few panel discussions we've done, it's going to be an all-nighter. So, it's a blessing to see that so many people are enjoying that series and finding it to be edifying. Luca Medugno, good to see you, my good man. Yeah, definitely check it out. This debate was fun, lively and passionate at times, but that's to be expected, especially during endgame debates. Okay, so Luca and I, we are going to be doing a follow-up debate as well on endogenous retroviruses. I'm supposed to be doing a podcast on endogenous retroviruses with conspiracy cats, another endogenous retrovirus debate with Snake Was Right. So, I'm trying to just find a way to sneak my own personal debates in within all of these debates. Okay, so that being said, if you haven't yet picked up the Endogenous Retrovirus Handbook, please do. Please do. As I like to say, what are you waiting for? This is the most comprehensive response that you are going to find on endogenous retroviruses as evidence for evolution. So let me put it in the side chat for you. That's the .com link. So check that out. It's still the limited edition version that you can get, which you can see up there. The orange version of it. You can also get a colored version. That's the blue one there. And I'm looking forward to having another cordial and sophisticated discussion with Luca Medugno. So Luca's been on here many times. Luca, I believe, is going to be taking the Evolution Challenge as well with Kent for August. So we're just working on finding a topic for that. I've just booked, some people were asking me earlier, John Mackay, the creation guy, Joseph Hubbard. The last time we had them on was, I think a couple months ago now. We had a flood boundaries conference. It was about 6 hours on the geologic column, all things the flood, where's the flood boundaries, creation, the flood itself, post-flood. So please check that out. But we have them coming back on the first week of August. We're going to be doing a show pertaining to something related to the flood. And then in September, the first week, we are going to have them back on for a show focusing on dinosaurs in the Bible. So lots of shows for everybody to look forward to: lectures, debates, interviews, discussions, and more. So if you like what you're seeing from this channel, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, share around this content, because the truth is important. Critical thinking is so incredibly important. Guys, that's why we have so many of these debates. Okay, a lot of people, they'll wonder, why so many debates? That's because we promote critical thinking by hosting so many awesome debates where we get so many different, views into the octagon to discuss and debate in a healthy and a sophisticated way. So if you're interested in a debate on creation, evolution, atheism, soteriology, nature of God, philosophy, morality, you name it, shoot me an email. You can find the email on standingfortruthministries.com under the contact section. And, if you want to support us and keep us going full-time, putting out full-time content, you can support us through there as well, or become a patron, a Standing for Truth patron for as little as $1 a month. So, all right, guys, that's pretty much all that comes to mind. I took a little longer here tonight in terms of reminders and announcements, but that's just because this debate concluded our 3-day debate marathon, 4 debates, 3 nights. And I would say every single debate within these 3 nights were debates to remember, epic debates, as I like to say. Okay, guys, that's pretty much it. We'll see you over on Logical, Plausible, Probables channel for, I am sure, another very fruitful and entertaining after show. God bless.